My colleagues from SPEC, and I want to also acknowledge the hard work and the professionalism of the Azerbaijan COP team led by Minister Babiev as COP29 comes to order. So I want to address tonight a topic that is on everyone's mind, the U.S. election. For those of us dedicated to climate action, last week's outcome in the United States is obviously bitterly disappointing, particularly because of the unprecedented resources and ambition President Biden and Vice President Harris brought to the climate fight. Starting with our bold 2030 NDC to cut emissions by 50 to 52% below 2005 levels, by rejoining Paris, by making the largest investment in climate and clean energy in history through the Inflation Reduction Act and the bipartisan infrastructure law. The President's commitment to quadruple international climate funds from the United States to $11 billion per year. It is clear that the next administration will try to take a U-turn and reverse much of this progress. And of course, I'm keenly aware of the disappointment that the United States has at times caused the parties of the climate regime who have lived through a pattern of strong, engaged, effective U.S. leadership, followed by sudden disengagement after a U.S. presidential election. And I know that this disappointment is more difficult to tolerate as the dangers we face grow ever more catastrophic. But that is the reality. In January, we're going to inaugurate a president whose relationship to climate change is captured by the words hoax and fossil fuels. He's vowed to dismantle our environmental safeguards and once again withdraw the United States from the Paris Agreement. That is what he has said, and we should believe him. The United States is a democracy, and in a democracy, the will of the people prevails. Our administration is working with the incoming administration to ensure a peaceful and orderly transition of power. But what I want to tell you today is that while the United States federal government under Donald Trump may put climate action on the back burner, the work to contain climate change is going to continue in the United States with commitment and passion and belief. As President Biden said in the Rose Garden last week, setbacks are unavoidable, but giving up is unforgivable. This is not the end of our fight for a cleaner, safer planet. Facts are still facts. Science is still science. The fight is bigger than one election, one political cycle, in one country. This fight is bigger still because we are all living through a year defined by the climate crisis in every country of the world. July 22nd was the hottest day in recorded history. The consequences of living on a rapidly warming planet are all around us, and not just in collapsing coral reefs and melting ice sheets. It's had devastating impact on people's lives. This fall, Hurricane Helene and Milton slammed into the southeastern United States, killing hundreds and cutting off power and water in communities for weeks. The worst drought in decades in southern Africa is putting 20 million children at risk of malnutrition and even starvation. Wildfires and drought are ravaging the Amazon and the Pantanal, destroying indigenous communities and burning up an area the size of Switzerland. Catastrophic floods in Spain just 2 weeks ago poured a year's worth of rain in a single day. In Asia, in September, supercharged Typhoon Yagi killed hundreds and caused $16 billion in damages from the Philippines to Myanmar. None of this is a hoax. It is real. It's a matter of life and death. Fortunately, many in our country and around the world are working to prepare the world for this new reality and to mitigate the most catastrophic effects of climate change. From day one, President Biden and Vice President Harris built a climate team to work with partners around the world to build strong, sustainable, equitable economies. We sought to open up finance for developing economies to accelerate their own clean energy transitions. We saw a gap between clean energy supply and anticipated demand and sought to close it. And our global partners know that addressing the climate crisis also bolsters their own national security and global security while creating jobs, new industries, and new opportunities. The United States has been the world's partner in these efforts for 4 years. That remains our mission. For example, the Inflation Reduction Act is unleashing a clean energy boom in America that's boosting innovation and lowering costs for clean energy technology by as much as 25%. That helps speed deployment of clean energy, not just in the US, but across the globe, slashing emissions everywhere. As a result, the Rhodium Group found that for every ton of carbon pollution in America, reduced in America because of the IRA, it will drive reductions of up to 2.9 tons outside the United States. The historic investments under President Biden and Vice President Harris have crucially been government-enabled but private sector-led. In total, just since the president took office, American companies have announced more than $450 billion in new clean energy investments. Here at COP29 and moving forward, the private sector must continue to lead, to make new and bigger investments in clean energy technologies, to continue to innovate and build a net zero economy. And we will continue to need subnational actors in the US and globally to lead the way. In the wake of COP22 in Marrakesh and President Trump's decision in 2017 to pull the United States out of the Paris Agreement, the We Are Still In movement was born in the United States. It has now grown into the most expansive coalition ever assembled in support of US climate action, with more than 5,000 states, businesses, local governments, tribal nations, universities, and more. And this year's COP, we expect to see representation from many of these leaders, as well as several states and cities, and a bipartisan group from the US Congress. Because support for clean energy has become bipartisan in the United States. You might not know that by reading the newspapers, but it has. 57% of new clean energy jobs created since the Inflation Reduction Act passed are located in congressional districts represented by Republicans. Those jobs come from over 350 new clean energy projects, totaling $286 billion in investments. Many Republicans, especially governors, know all this activity is a good thing for their districts, states, and for their economies. Governor Henry McMaster of South Carolina, Governor Kevin Stitt in Oklahoma, for example, have welcomed clean energy investments for many years, from the EV supply chain to the solar supply chain. And earlier this year, 18 House Republicans wrote a letter to Speaker Mike Johnson urging him not to repeal the IRA's clean energy tax credits. The letter says a full repeal would create a worst-case scenario where we would have spent billions of taxpayer dollars and received next to nothing in return. It's precisely because the IRA has staying power that I'm confident that the United States will continue to reduce emissions, benefiting our own country and benefiting the world. The economics of clean energy transition have simply taken over. New power generation is going to be clean. The desire to build out next generation nuclear is still there. Farmers and ranchers are reducing emissions and raising their incomes through more efficient and biologic fertilizers, biodigesters, and feed additives. The hyperscalers are still committed to powering the future with clean energy, including safe, reliable nuclear energy. The auto companies are still investing in electrification and hybridization. All those trends are not going to be reversed. Are we facing new headwinds? Absolutely. But will we revert back to the energy system of the 1950s? No way. And we have only one administration at a time. Until late January, President Biden and Vice President Harris will still be in the White House. So we're here at COP29 to continue to work together with our global partners and other parties. The COP is a critical opportunity to cement our progress and keep 1.5 degrees alive. to accelerate progress on reducing all greenhouse gases, and perhaps most notably, to strengthen global cooperation on adaptation and climate finance. We are here to work, and we are committed to a successful outcome at COP29. We can and will make real progress on the backs of our climate-committed states and cities, our innovators, our companies, and our citizens, especially young people who understand more than most that climate change poses an existential threat that we cannot afford to ignore. Failure or apathy is simply not an option. Today is a day across much of the world that we remember those who were willing to pay the ultimate price to build a more peaceful world. In the United States, it's Veterans Day, a day to honor all those who answered our country's highest call to service, to whom we owe not just our eternal gratitude, but truly our freedom. We owe it to them and to all people who care about the future of this planet to make the most of these next 2 weeks and to make sure we have a successful outcome. With that, I'm going to take some questions from the press, and I've got an order to start with. I'm going to start with Sarah Schoenhardt from ED News.
Hi, thank you so much for taking questions. Thank you for addressing us. The U.S. role is arguably diminished at COP this year because of the election. I'm curious, what do you see as the main goal for the U.S. at this COP, and how do you plan to achieve that?
Look, we've been working very hard with the COP presidency and with our colleagues across the world on a range of issues. Tomorrow, we're, for example, co-hosting with China and Azerbaijan a summit on methane and other non-CO2 gases to reduce what is sometimes not as much attention paid to, but fully causes half of of global warming. So we will continue to encourage people to work diligently to come up with a new funding formula through the new cumulative quantified goal. I was here at the pre-COP just a couple of weeks ago. We're continuing those discussions. It needs to be realistic, but we think we can get that done here. We're making progress on finally finishing Article 6. And we're working, I think, on important outcomes that build on the success in the Dubai Consensus, particularly in the area of energy deployment, tripling renewables. That's going to take more effort, including building out battery storage, building out grids, and the outcome document of this COP hopefully will point the world in the right direction on that. So there's still plenty of work to do. Our team is here to make sure that work gets done. Justin Rowlett from BBC.
Oh, yeah, of course, the mic. Thank you, Mr. Podesta. Mr. Podesta, is there an opening for China to take leadership on the climate issue?
Well, look, China is now 30% of global emissions. They're the largest emitter in the world, they have an obligation. As you know, we've been engaged with them over a long period of time. In my case, that goes back to dialogues that I had with senior levels of the Chinese government in advance of 2014, when President Obama and President Xi announced jointly their nationally determined commitments and gave life to, and I think helped really propel action that led to the Paris Agreement. But as the world's largest emitter, they have an obligation to take account of what occurred in Dubai, to come forward with a 1.5 aligned, all greenhouse gas, economy-wide NDC. And I'm sure they're sending a senior level delegation here. I mentioned the joint summit we're hosting tomorrow on methane. We've been engaged with them on reducing other non-CO2 gases, including industrial nitrous oxide. But it is incumbent, if we're going to keep 1.5 within reach, that they come forward with real reductions against what we believe is an economy that's really already peaked emissions. Whether it's this year, next year, or last year, they're in the mid-2020s, they're peaking. They've already hit their 2030 target for deployment of renewables, which they pledged in 2015, 6 years ahead of schedule. So I think they can be more ambitious, and I think it will send a powerful signal to the world if when they issued their NDC in next year, it is, as I said, 1.5 aligned and shows real reductions from their peak. So they have an important role to play, and I hope that they play it. I'm sorry. Jake Biddle from Grist.
Thank you, Mr. Podesta. On the new collective quantified goal, there are proposals from Canada and Switzerland to enlarge the donor base by including countries with a certain level of GNI or per capita emissions. I'm wondering what the U.S.'s position on those proposals are, and if an expanded donor base is a condition for U.S. support of the goal.
Look, we've felt that an expanded donor base has been long warranted. We've argued that in the run-up to COP. There are capable parties. This is not 1992 in terms of the economic structure of the world. We also already see a number of parties who are providing climate finance, including China, and we think it's time to take account of those contributions through their contributions to multilateral development banks and other forms of cooperation, so that both the quantum is serious and people are accountable to make sure, particularly the large emitters, to make sure that developing countries can have the financing they need for both adaptation and mitigation. Laman Zainalova from Trend. Good to see you again.
My question is related to climate financing issue. So climate financing has been a real challenge to achieve. And in this regard, especially, it has been a challenge for least developed countries and also small island countries. Which commitments and improvements do you expect to achieve at COP29 in terms of simplifying the access to financing, especially for those countries, in order to help them to adapt and also to fight climate action?
I think that's an extremely important question, and I think one that the United States has been clearly focused on to make sure that the least developed economies, the small island states, other fragile states have access to climate finance. We spent a lot of time talking about the quantum of what, from $100 billion up, what's the quantum of the support layer of the NCQG, but there's also very important work that needs to be done to improve access to financing, the so-called qualitative elements of the NCQG. And I think that we've been engaged with international financial institutions, including the climate funds, to make sure that they simplify their processes, that they give the assistance that's necessary to make sure that those countries and those economies can access those funds. Often, even in where there's a capacity to have support for the process, the process itself is so encumbered that particularly smaller countries can't access it. So it's something that we think is a critical element of the negotiations, and hopefully in that, as we move to try to frame the final version of the new NCQG, equal attention will be paid on the qualitative elements so that access is for once and for all available across the globe. VJV from The Economist.
Hi, thank you for your comments today. I wanted to ask, in the time you have remaining, what are the most important things that you think you can do to Trump-proof your accomplishments of the Biden administration, and going beyond administrative action as well? Do you think there's a possibility of something like permitting reform, where there is some bipartisan support? Is there any chance in the lame duck, or is that a dead duck?
The Congress is just coming back into town tomorrow. I think it'll be a topic how both sides sort that out. I think there is support and bipartisan support in the Senate for moving forward with permitting reform. Whether the House decides it wants to take it up, I can't speculate standing here today. They've been gone for a while, as you know, for the election break. But I think there are a number of issues. We're fully committed to trying to award and obligate the funds that were available through the Inflation Reduction Act. We have already awarded $98 billion. That's about 88% of the money that's available in the fiscal years available to us. We're committed to moving forward and getting more of that done. We're also one of the, I wear both hats because I still sit and help drive the domestic implementation of the IRA. We have some important tax guidance that needs to be put out, particularly on the carbon, on the technology neutral production and investment tax credits for clean energy production, for clean hydrogen, and a couple of other tax credits. So we're finalizing those rules. And in the meantime, we're also trying to work, as I said, with our state and local partners. As I was walking in to the room, I saw Wade Crowfoot from the state of California, who's here representing the governor. We're working with them to make sure that we're listening to their needs about what they're trying to get done. So we still have plenty of work to do, and we have, I used to know the exact number, but it's around 72 days, I think, to get it done. So my team back in Washington is hard at work ensuring that we solidify the investments that, as I noted, are powering jobs and investment all across the country, north, south, east, west. And we think that is likely to be one of the best protections for the economic incentives that were included in the Inflation Reduction Act. But as I said, I think if you look at this from the private sector's perspective, what are they investing in? Where are they going? Power, transportation, even on the industrial side, where as a result of grants that we've been able to make under the bipartisan infrastructure law, there's a serious level of innovation going on to make green steel, to make great green cement. I don't think any of that is reversible. Can it be slowed down? Maybe, but the direction is clear. Companies are moving in that direction, and I think they have a lot of support from states, from cities, from other subnational actors to keep going.
John, we have time for just one more question. I think it's from Valerie.
Okay, Valerie.
Hi. Over here. Thanks. Sure. It's okay. Thanks so much. I just wanted to ask, tomorrow there's a focus on methane. The U.S. has been a leader on global methane action, but without the U.S. at the helm and with companies kind of stepping back with some of their decarbonization goals, where's the accountability going to be? I know there's going to be satellite data coming in, but then where is the accountability for those emissions?
Look, I think when we convene tomorrow, you'll see a number of new commitments are coming forward from countries to reduce, particularly methane from the oil and gas sector. We've put in place strong rules to do that, and we will fight to make sure that those rules stay in place to reduce, particularly to reduce methane from the oil and gas sector in the U.S. I think that we're also seeing a lot of interest in trying to work with the United States and with others to reduce waste methane from both landfills and from wastewater. And so I think that is a place where we can move forward together. And as I noted, I think I was in Beijing in early September, and Liu Jiamin, the special envoy for China, was in Washington in the spring. I think our dialogue and technical discussions on reducing all non-CO2 gases has been particularly productive, so that we understand each other's strategies and where really emissions can be reduced at a very low cost per ton of CO2 equivalent. So I feel good about that. I think you'll see, as I said, tomorrow, the World Bank stood up as a result of catalysts from the United States, a fund to help countries particularly decarbonize in their fuel production sectors. So that work is going on across the globe, and I expect that in the United States it'll continue. Most of the companies, most of the large majors have pledged to reduce their emissions. The public will have to hold them to account. We're just in the throes of finalization of our rules on the setting up the system to charge fees to oil and gas producers for excessive methane production. That was a feature of the Inflation Reduction Act. So that's a place where I think we continue to make progress, and we have strong global partnership from Central Asia. I think you'll hear some words from Azerbaijan on this coming tomorrow. So I won't preview that, but except to dangle it. Thanks, Valerie.
Thank you all.